Hello and welcome to this CDP Studio tutorial. In this tutorial we are going to make some LEDs blink. We are going to use Raspberry Pi and the FileIO library. But this time around we will use a component to interface between the GUI and the FileIO-server. This will allow us to make more interesting effects with the LEDs. First we need to set up a system and a library. We also need to open up the FileIO library and build it for Raspberry and Jessie. We will still be using the same LED setup as we did last time, with 3 LEDs connected to pin 17, 27 and 22. You can see the circuit diagram here. We will add the FileIO-server to our system and 3 GPIOs to it. The GPIOs need to be set to the correct pins, and the input needs to be ticked. The input setting on the GPIO is relative to the CDP component and not to the Raspberry Pi itself. In other words, setting the GPIO to input will allow it to receive inputs from other components. The FileIO server will then take the GPIO's value and write it to the correct pin on the Raspberry Pi. There is a routing property on the GPIO object. We are going to use this to connect signals from our component. Our component is going to have 3 output signals, 1 per LED. The signals will either be true or false. This value will be used to determine if a LED should be powered or not. Let's make the component. I'll call it GPIO interface. We need to add the 3 output signals. We will make them booleans. We are then going to add 3 different states. In each state we will make a different pattern with the LEDs. We are going to use a GUI with buttons to switch between the different states. Therefore, we need to set up transitions between all the states. We also need message handlers, as we are going to use the GUI buttons to send messages. The messages will then trigger new requested states. If you need to brush up on this, you can refer to our video on the state machine. When we have added the messages, we can start working on the logic inside the process functions. We are going to use a CDP timer to handle our timings. CDP timers can be used in more advanced settings that require precise timings. We will cover this in some other video. In the first state we will have the LEDs light up one by one and then all shut off. The time is specified in seconds, and when the time goes above 0.8 seconds we restart the timer. There is also a CDP timer that works with milliseconds. It's called CDP timer MS. In the second state we will just have them all pulse on and off. We'll have them on a 0.4 second interval. In the third state we'll have them do the opposite of the first state. All LEDs are initially on and then we turn them off one by one. We now need to set up the message handlers so that they request the proper states. When this is done, we add and configure our component. We make sure it's running at a suitable interval. 50 should be fine. Now we can route the GPIOs to the output signals of our component. With the routing completed, we are ready to enter design mode. We are going to design a GUI for our application. We will need 3 buttons for our states. We will pick the ones that can be used to send messages. We are also going to add a widget and fill it with 3 CDP lamps. We will lay the buttons out horizontally and the lamps vertically. We give the buttons labels so that we can distinguish them. After that we need to connect them to our component. We filter down to the CDP properties and connect the routing property to our component. We then input the messages on the CDP text command. We repeat this for the other 2 buttons. We also need to route the lamps to our component signals. We use the lamp style routing. The style routing takes an integer input and the lamp will display one of 5 colors. Since we are routing to booleans, we are only going to be able to toggle between setting 0 and 1, which should give us the green color and the off setting. The theme of the GUI can be customized using SVG files. There is also a dark theme available. We can add a switch that will allow us to switch between dark theme and light theme. We'll just add some widgets and use layouts to make it look decent. I add a widget to hold the buttons and one to hold the toggle button. I put those widgets inside another widget and then I apply some layouts to them. I lay the buttons out horizontally and the widgets vertically. We are now going to bind the toggle button to the function that enables the dark theme. We click Edit Signals and then we drag a connection from the toggle button to the main window. We connect the toggle function to the night mode function, and that's it. We are now ready to run the system. We first make sure that we are deploying to the Raspberry Pi. Then we run it. Now the system is running, and here you can see a video of the Raspberry Pi. The screen now has a GUI. We can use the buttons to change which LED is blinking. We can also switch between the dark and the light theme using our toggle button. This was all for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next video.